What's happening, everyone? Good Tuesday morning to you as of filming this. Hopefully it'll get published today, but sometimes it doesn't. Things get crazy around here and stuff comes in the door, or sometimes it's new guitar day and then nothing gets done. You may relate to that, or you know, those people. I was thinking about, I don't know why I'm bringing this up now, but probably because you got the Novo and then the PRS behind here just showed up at the shop a little while ago from our friends at Wildcat Guitars in California. So we got some cool plans for this guitar that we'll talk about in a different video. But we're talking about kind of the NAMM subject, but also, you know, before I get there, guitars coming and you know how for us, it's like we work at a guitar place, so it's not a big deal when they come here. But I remember, you know, when it's getting shipped and you're supposed to be working your job, you're like, oh, I got to go home for lunch and then, you know, see if my guitar's there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that, I don't know why I brought that up to start off, but we're talking about the NAMM show. The NAMM show just happened. We're talking about the innovation part of the NAMM show. You see it a lot in the amp world. There was a ton of amps this year. The Wildcat came out with a new amp, and there was like a new Spark amp that's kind of more like for live and studio. A bunch of interesting looking amps. But we're talking about innovation at the show, and I'm really excited about the innovation part of the show. Other parts of the show, maybe not as excited about, right? But is there anything that you kind of saw? I know that you were, we talked last week, you're maybe like, I don't say you were anti-NAMM, but you were a little bit like pulled back from the media horde that just got thrown at you.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? Like,
yeah, I think that was definitely like the straw that broke the camel's back. You know, just kind of circumstances in my life and the timing. So it's like I'm not trying to be all like, you know, but it was just kind of like at that moment you would open up your feed and you're just like, oh, it's all of this stuff. And then yeah, I will admit like a little bit of like FOMO, and you're like, oh, you know, we could be there. We could be standing there and seeing that image in real life, but you know, and but it's not to say that, you know, I'm like, you know, I'm angry at the show or anything like that. Like, I still love it, and I think it's really cool. And you know, at first you're like, oh, gee, it's all NAMM show coverage, but then you just, you know, you forget about that, and then you're just kind of looking at all the stuff that's coming out, and you know, and it's just interesting. I don't know if for a lot of other people, because we're pretty well like plugged into. Yeah. I'm pretty plugged into music and guitar and gear and techie kind of stuff. So like my feeds is kind of like
it's always
that.
Yeah.
And so it's hard. So that kind of is like my own thing. And so I was seeing a lot of cool stuff though. And one of the things that I think is really interesting are these kind of like polygonal kind of shapes. I know Coward did one, and Revolta released something, and there's another brand, I think Cream Guitars, I think is what it's called. They had
a crazy booth I saw at the show. Yeah.
And such radical stuff, like stuff that was coming out in 58 and 59, you know, like the Flying V's and the Explorers, and people were like, ugh, what's that? And so I don't know, I think that's really cool, and I think people that aren't afraid to go outside the box and something that is maybe not for everybody's taste, but like there's always that one person that's going to see that and be like, that's the guitar I need to play.
Yeah.
And I just love, you know, kind of that vibe. And I know when we did go, we kind of got offered or like asked if we wanted to be part of that like Small Builders Guild, or what is it? I forget what they call it.
It was like a showcase or something like that. Yeah.
Small Builder Showcase. And that also, like, I remember seeing some really cool stuff then, and so I can only imagine that was just kind of a cool. It's where you go when you feel like you've seen all the normal stuff, and then you can go and see kind of where the fringe characters are at, which sometimes you find some cool stuff.
Yeah, and then that's kind of what we did at the 2020 show. That if you go back on our Instagram or Facebook, we just posted kind of some memories of that show. So you can see Marco and I and Seymour Duncan and meeting a bunch of other people and just having a blast at the show. But we really launched a bunch of guitars, and so I thought about it going back to kind of our mindset and our headspace then versus now, and like kind of seeing people still going for it, still trying stuff, and I think a lot of these companies are a little farther along in the, you know, maybe guitar wise specifically, for sure. They're building these creative guitars, and it feels like more and more people are taking risks, and it's not just Strat and Tellys. I mean, I'm sure there was a wash of Strat and Tellys at the show. You know, this company's take on the Strat and this company's take on the Telly, but I'm seeing the innovation being more accepted. You know, like you have the Novo, right? And some people would be like, that's a crazy shape. And it's not really that crazy, but it's not mainstream necessarily either. But it's like, it like moved up the acceptance, you know, ladder a little quicker than maybe other stuff. And that's what I'm seeing at the show, where my first reaction seeing some of the really crazy guitars was like, oh, I'm not really sure I like that. And then I kind of like look again and like, yeah, that's actually not, that's not too bad. And so I don't know if I'm becoming like more accepting, or if it's just the industry itself is kind of like, you know, we're seeing more new stuff coming out, and it's like, okay, well, maybe because some of the big guys weren't there, and so you weren't seeing like, oh, here's another Strat, here's another Telly from Fender. It's like, what's new? Like, it's the same thing. So I like that part of the show. If you went to the show and you had any like specific highlights or standouts, leave those in the comments below. We're obviously gear nerds ourselves, but yeah, it was weird because when the show happens, I flash back to when I see photos of people setting up their booth. I flash back to us setting up our booth, and we're sitting here staring at the NAMM backdrop, which you've seen on some videos across the shop, and so it makes me think about it, right? We were just talking before the camera came on, like, oh, no, there were some people that wanted to meet us at the show, and there were some people that we wanted to meet and kind of network with and do all that. And that's kind of, I think, still what people say it's all about. And I've tried to get like a pulse from people, like, what do you think about the show? How did it really go? What was the traffic like? Was it productive? Was it efficient? You know, and so I've been kind of like making some phone calls, sending texts and emails, just trying to get an idea of what it really was like. Because, you know, as a business, we're like, do we want to risk the money to go down there and check it out? Do we want to just go down there and walk the show? Yeah. That kind of thing. So, and I can relate to what you're saying too about the kind of the fatigue of the show. I mean, there's a little bit of like, oh, bummer, we're not there. And so like, I don't know if that's the rebellious side of us. We're just like, well, we're not there, so we're not going to be fully happy about the show. I don't know, but it is kind of that, like, we want to be a part of this industry, and that feels like one of the, you know, it was in the past definitely the best way to meet everyone, to meet people from, you know, across the pond, if you will. Yeah. And they're coming to that place, and that's a lot easier for us to get to. But yeah, anything else that stood out to you from the show, or any questions maybe that we can ask and get answered below? Because I think we're genuinely curious about some things.
Yeah, so. I mean, I definitely saw like a lot of cool pedal releases. Like Red Panda released something called a Raster, I think, which that just makes me think of the laser that we have
Raster, here. Yeah, that's right.
I think that's what it was called. Okay. And like, I remember seeing them at the NAMM show that we went to, and that's just a company that, like, you wouldn't look at it from the, I mean, the pedal has like 6 knobs on it, but it does a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of functionality to the pedal, and it's not a huge pedal. And that's just something that I was just kind of like not expecting. You know, you expect the guitar stuff, you expect like the amp stuff, or like the amp modeler stuff to some degree, because those are like, you know, the majority share of like the dollar exchange maybe. But well, I don't know, actually pedals, maybe you can sell a bunch of them, and then you're I don't know how that side of stuff works, but stuff like that. And I know that we mentioned that like last year or something, and also I think maybe this was kind of like the first regular NAMM show back, and it's funny that I say that because we weren't there, but it seems like all the other ones up until this point, like 2020 and in between now, like we're kind of a little bit rocky and a little different, or just like different kind of NAMMs, just different experiences. So if you went to all of them, like, you'd be curious to see what you think, and how, you know, how was 2020 NAMM, how was, you know, 21, and how was the next year after that? I think, I don't know how many there were, but.
Yeah, they took some time off, and then they had some like, I would say more restrictive ones, but they had, you know, more regulations on some of them, and then they did a couple other ones, and I think did away with the Nashville one, you know, kind of thing. But.
Yeah, but one of the brands that I guess wasn't one of the recent ones, like Sir, like a big company and awesome guitars and amps and pedals and all of that good stuff. They were like, oh, we're not going to do the NAMM show. We're going to do like our company party. But then this last one, this one that just happened, they had a nice simple little booth. And I mean, I saw a lot of pictures of John Suhr and Tom Anderson like shaking hands, and I'm like, they look like good buddies. And so like, I don't know, I got a kick out of that, and it really, that's the spirit of it, is kind of meeting with these people, and we all kind of have like this life hack being around, and like as a job being around guitars and music and all of that stuff. And even though it's not always like as easy as it seems, or there's like the hidden stuff beneath the iceberg with all of that stuff, like that is what it's about. I don't know. It's just like meeting with these people, and people that you maybe only ever collaborate via the internet. You're in the same place, and so it's like
you're actually a real person or whatever. Yeah,
it's like being on the elementary school playground or something.
That's right.
Recess time.
Yeah,
but it's just cool. I just it's a good thing. You know, it's an awesome thing.
Yeah, and I saw some stuff of different YouTube people that were video demo guys, and they were able to go meet the manufacturers that they work with, or like the Andertons guys were there and kind of interviewing people and watching like segments on like our buddy Zach from Mythos and other people like that, and I think that's cool too, because then you realize like the industry is like, it's the manufacturers, but then it's the dealers, and it's the guitar companies, and the influencers or the YouTubers, and kind of this big giant wash. And I'm just talking about kind of the guitar corner, right? There was still the drums and the keyboards and the other the other non-important stuff.
Just like DJ stuff.
Yeah, whatever. Like there was that whole like, I want to say loud section, but all the sections are loud. But I think about that part of it, because sometimes you don't see, we're in the shop, we're building stuff, we're looking at a spreadsheet and building your orders and shipping them out. And then there is the guys that gals that are making the videos, or that are the artists that are showing up and playing at these booths, and they're a part of this too, right? They're trying to make a living, they're trying to carve out their name, and the companies are trying to work with them. And we're working with them, and we're working with some companies. And so it's like this big industry, and that's kind of maybe the best snapshot of the state of the industry and kind of where things are at. So at least in person, right? We kind of all have the digital state of the industry, which sometimes is kind of, I don't want to say it's boring, but you kind of, like you said, there's a little bit of fatigue kind of like looking through your feed and being like, oh, well, there's this person, and they hang out with like all these, famous guitarists, and she's like, okay, that's pretty cool, but what does that mean in terms of like business, from my end of things? I'm like, okay, well, how, you're always going there trying to like sell stuff, and I've gone there, while we've had this business, I've gone there as more of an observer and less of like okay, I've got to set my meetings and all this other stuff, and some parts of me miss that because I just want to go there as a guitar nerd.
Yeah.
But like the 2020 show, I mean, it was hard for us in a lot of different ways, because we did spend a lot of money, and so we're like, okay, we got to make that money back, and hopefully more than what we spent. But curious to hear again your thoughts on the NAMM show below. We're just we thought we would just turn the camera on and really talk about this subject. I think each day you're kind of still seeing some more content coming out. I've got a couple, the Balaguer guys we work with from time to time, and they were there, so I've got a call scheduled with Joe Balaguer to talk about kind of his experience of the NAMM show, and just another company that we totally respect and that is going for it and really getting their name out there in a lot of awesome ways. And so I'm just curious to like, hey, how'd it go? And way to go for trying it and getting yourself out there, and we'll see. Like we want to get as much information as possible, and then make a decision on the 2025 NAMM show, or whether or not we're going to go or not. It always seems to come at an inconvenient time in terms of when the way our calendar goes to like make a commitment to it. But we did it in 2020, so maybe we'll be back. If you'd like to see us at the show, you can put your arguments down below as well, and then convince us to show up. I know a few people did say, hey, you're going to be there, or miss you at the show. And so that was probably maybe the most bummer part of it for me.
That just kind of reminds me, like, I want to take a second to just like really thank those people that like, people don't have to do that, but the people like reached out to Brian and were like, hey, are you going to be there? Like, that kind of says like, oh, had we been there, like there would have been someone that would have been excited to see us. And so like, that really means a lot. Like there's so many choices, but that you think about like, little less. You know, it's kind of cool and definitely kind of put some wind in our sails and stuff like that. So,
very true.
You know, I hope it was a great experience for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for watching this show, and thank you for supporting us. Like Marco said, I mean, it really does mean a lot. Kind of a shot in the arm every once in a while is a good thing, and we're excited to continue through this year, and we'll see. We may go to some regional shows. We got a lot of stuff kind of like on paper, and as we learned in the last 4 years, something on paper doesn't mean it's actually going to happen, but we're going to do our best to kind of get out there, because we like hanging out and playing guitar together, but we like seeing other people too, so that's always good. We got to get out of our little guitar cave here, even though some people are like, that's so cool, we want to come to your guitar cave, and that's fine, you should come to our shop. But we want to get out every once in a while too, so we need to get some sunshine. Yeah, exactly. All right, guys, thanks so much. And if you have any questions, comments, or whatever you want to say below, we'd love to hear it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, see you next time.